just say your name and that's it. Because we want to talk about Genesis 40 afterwards. But I think it's good if we have all the names. Abraham, maybe you could start.
Okay.
No, Abraham.
Abraham.
Yes, you.
Okay. Abraham. Yeah.
Elisa,
Sebastian.
Erdmut,
Markus,
And Alexander.
Axel,
Shabtai.
Rudi,
Anna,
Felix.
Rebecca, Sonja, Jonathan,
Lou. Tell me.
We've been muted by the host. Okay, Annika.
Now it's yours.
Annika.
Annika.
You want? Oh, Rachel. Hi.
And
Alyssa. Hi.
hi.
Avion. Hello.
Hello.
Unfortunately, you only can see our silhouettes, right? Because the light is coming from behind the.
Try this slide.
We can see most people blurry.
Ah, nice.
Okay. So, do you have the text right in front of you?
Remind us which
Genesis
one?
40.
Well, okay.
So,
which chapter?
we have chapter 40. And at the moment, a car driving by. So I wait for a few seconds. I would suggest that we start here because we are more people, but after every fourth or fifth person, I will call one of you on the stream. Okay?
Whatever you say is okay.
Okay, so again,
You're a German moderator.
Jonathan, would you start please with the first verse?
What chapter?
Chapter 40.
Chapter 40.
Page 13.
פרק מ'.
There we go. ויהי אחר הדברים האלה, חטאו משקה מלך מצרים, למלך מצרים.
Und der Pharao wurde zornig über seine beiden Kämmerer, den Obersten der Mundschenken und den Obersten der Bäcker.
Und gab sie in Gewahrsam ins Haus des Obersten der Leibwache, in das Gefängnis, wo Josef gefangen lag.
Und der Oberste der Leibwache befahl Josef zu ihnen, dass er ihnen diente. Und sie saßen einige Zeit im Gefängnis.
Rahel?
Und es träumte ihnen beiden, dem Mundschenk und dem Bäcker des Königs von Ägypten, in einer Nacht einem jeden ein eigener Traum. Und eines jeden Traum hatte seine Bedeutung.
Anne?
ויבוא עליהם יוסף בבוקר, וירא אותם בהינם זועפים.
Fragte er sie und sprach, warum seid ihr so traurig?
Sie antworteten, es hat uns geträumt und wir haben niemanden, der es uns auslege. Josef sprach, Auslegen steht bei Gott, erzählen wir es.
فقص رئيس السقاة إنه على يوسف وقال له كنت في حلمي وإذا قامت الأمان.
Annika?
Der hatte 3 Reben und er grünte, wuchs und blühte und seine Trauben wurden reif.
Shachai?
בכוס פרעה בידי, ויקח את הענבים, ויסחט אותם אל כוס פרעה, ויתן את הכוס על כף פרעה.
Josef sprach zu ihm, das ist seine Deutung. 3 Reben sind 3 Tage.
Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee unto thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand after the former manner when thou wast his butler.
Aber gedenke meiner, wenn dir es wohl geht, und tu Barmherzigkeit an mir,
dass du dem Pharao von mir sagst und mich so aus diesem Hause bringst.
Elisa?
15. For indeed I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing for them to have put me in the pit.
Aviram, would you continue, please?
וירא שר האופים כי טוב פתר, ויאמר אל יוסף, אף אני בחלומי, והנה 3 סלי חורי על ראשי.
Und im obersten Korbe allerlei Gebackenes für den Pharao. Und die Vögel fraßen aus dem Korbe auf meinem Haupt.
Josef antwortete und sprach, das ist seine Deutung. 3 Körbe sind 3 Tage.
ועוד 3 ימים יישא פרעה את ראשך מעליך, ותלה אותך על עץ, ואכל העוף את בשרך מעליך.
And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants. And he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants.
וישב את שר המשקים על משקהו, ויתן הכוס על כף פרעה.
No. Verse 23.
23. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him.
Okay, thank you. So, this is the story where Joseph, for the first time, interpreted dreams. And what really interests me is the question, did Joseph know that he was able to interpret dreams? What do you think? Jonathan.
I think he does. That he did it when he was 17 or even earlier, when he was a young kid, and he believed in himself. He still believed in himself. He waited to the king. He waited to the dream to come true.
So you think that he, because he was a dreamer, he also was able to interpret dreams?
Yes.
Okay. Rebecca?
I don't think so, because when he was younger and he dreamed, he don't explain anything, and he talked to somebody else because maybe he searched for explanation. And in this situation, he says, yes, tell me, but he pointed out to God. So maybe it's like, it's God thing, and maybe I can do it, but if I not can do it, I can say only God can do it. So it's like a little bit an excuse. So I don't think he knows before he knew that, before he heard the dreams.
Berend and Alexander?
Well, that's really an interesting question, because if he knew that he was able to interpret dreams, then my whole point of him being naive in chapter 37 is obsolete.
Alexander, Oli?
Yeah, for me, I would say that verse 8 is really the verse. I would point to this verse as Rebecca did. L'Elohim Pitronim. That is a very, very decisive sentence. So he knows it is God who can only interpret. But then this interesting thing, so tell me, opens the possibility that with God's help, or maybe if God gives him, he will be able to do so. So he did not know from the very beginning, and he was not able to do so. But maybe some things matzliach with God, so also here, maybe.
We have Elisa or Aviram. I don't know who raised the hand.
Yes. According to what's written here, like some people were referencing, it seems like Joseph is relating to God and doesn't necessarily know if he has the power to interpret dreams, like was mentioned before, that he had dreams about himself, or he thought about himself, but wasn't entirely sure what they meant. So it's possible that he knows somehow that God is with him, and he knows that God can interpret dreams, and God has this power. And so he thinks maybe I'll be able to do this through God. So I'm not sure if that means that he knows that he can, but maybe he's aware that God is with him, and God is the only one who can interpret dreams.
Thank you. We have Rolly and Shabtai and Rebecca.
I can now say what I wanted to say when Ferenc first offered the naive Joseph outlook, because this somehow paradoxically connects with Abraham's Ender's Game Joseph, because the way I perceive Joseph from the story is someone who, in more than one way, their life is a dream. So when he comes in the morning, he says, "Look, guys, I had a dream." It's not as if he spends his time. This is very different than what I had. This is weird. This is something that I wish I understood. He feels at home with dreams. So the reason he's okay with talking to them about it is not because he's a professional dream interpreter, but more like he's a native speaker. And being a native speaker, he's plugged in to what we might call, if we look at it from the outside, like Abraham suggested, we might call it a master plan. But he's a native speaker of this plan. So it's not as if he needs to plan it in a very remote, cerebral way. He intuits it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Shasta, yes. I don't think that he interpreted the dreams at all. The dreams, as far as they concern these two people, they're really unimportant. And I don't think it's worth all these verses to speak about the fate of these two insignificant people. And nothing comes out of it. It's not even important to the story, only to show that he proved himself as be able to solve dreams in a small level. But when he's brought to the king, that's a totally different level. He says he had a lucky guess, and that's it. It's not. I don't think he solved them. He interpreted the dreams. I think when he tells them, "Halo leElohim pitronim," meaning I'm not going to interpret your dreams. Your dreams are bigger than what you think. Your dreams are visions. I'll just tell you what will happen to you. Meaning, I'll tell you your fate, and that's all. And I don't think that when Yosef explains the meaning of the branches and the baskets of bread, I don't think that this is really. I think that the dreams have much more than that. It's to dream such a big dream about such a small person. You know, I don't think that it justifies. The dream is much more than that.
So there lies a deeper meaning in this episode.
Right.
Okay. We have Rebecca, Sonja, Sebastian, and Abraham.
I'm wondering about the second part of the 8th verse. Because first he pointed out that the explanation of dreams or the interpretation of dreams are to God, and then he said, "Tell me." If you want to read just sentences in a bad way, you could say he puts himself in the position of God. So I think it's dialectic a little.
Yeah.
I think it's quite astonishing that at this point he interprets the dreams, because we had the dreams.
Raise your voice.
Of course, I think it's quite astonishing that at this point he's interpreting the dreams, or that it comes at this point, because we have the dreams from the beginning, from chapter 37, and they are from the storyline far from being true. He was sold as a slave, and then he rised up in Potiphar's house, but then he landed in prison. So the dream that the brothers will bow to him is as far away as it gets. But still, at this point, he interprets dreams. So does he have confidence in the dreams still, even though the dreams from the beginning are so far away? Or maybe do these dreams build up his confidence in the dreaming and the revelation in dreams again? So what role does this play in the connection to the first dreams?
Mm-hmm. Sebastian, and can you understand us properly?
Yeah.
Okay.
I noticed that when the people are interpreting the dreams of others, for example, we have the situation by the brothers of Joseph. He had a dream, and interpretation of father and the brothers came to a situation like they hated even Joseph because of there was a dream. He actually told about what was the dream, and they interpreted into the situation like they started to hate him. Yeah, so Joseph actually on the beginning of the story didn't interpret the dream. It did the brothers and the father, and it said really it's literally said that not the Joseph said that no, I will be your ruler, but the brothers and the father. And now we have an interpretation of Joseph. So it's another situation, but so he had a kind of grace, he had a kind of skill to interpret dreams in the right way. And he said that is because of God, not because of himself, but because of God. God gave him such a skill, or the actually law, or the such a experience. I don't know how to call it.
Abraham,
okay. I think
just wait a second until the car is passed by.
I think looking at text 7, and Joseph had a dream, just having a dream like Rashafta explained to us the first time. Dreams come to special people who have a relationship with God like Jacob had. And just he saying, I had a dream, and his brothers understanding this guy can understand the dream. He's a person on purpose, on mission. I think from the text here and his approach to the two of them, yes, God interprets dreams. You can look at it from the context of somebody who you meet on the street, and maybe this person, those of us who know football, is somebody like Lionel Messi. You ask him, can you play football? He said, let's see, give me a ball. That is how I get it. And he plays it so well. And in verse 16, we get that this guy is a professional. In verse 16, we hear, when the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, meaning he was an expert in what he had done. Okay, then, initially, you have done it so well, you are good, you are professional. So now interpret my also. So with these points, I conclude that Joseph could really interpret it.
I see. Marcus? I would find it interesting to connect this verse 8 with the verse of 39:2, who says God was with Joseph, and so making it could be a wrong way. Only God can tell a dream. God is with Joseph, so Joseph can interpret dreams of the beginning, that he also knows now that God is with him. That was a question of the last days. Yes, that he knows that.
This would fit to the notion that Abram, you mentioned before that people who dream have a special relation to God, but when we assume that neither the steward nor the baker has a special relation to God, we probably are not wrong. So the story is about something else. And Marcus, you pointed to, and God was with Joseph. But now it's you, Anne.
Yes, I think that what you, Abraham, said is a very nice fact, and due to that, I think in this chapter we can find elements of tragic in a way, because he is such an expert. Normally everything should go well, and he should go out of jail and do better, but I'm not quite sure on how to date the story exactly, but maybe it could be worth in some chapters to see how elements of, for example, Greek tragedies can be found there. For example, in the end, he did well and he is an expert, but the last sentence is like in a Greek tragedy, yet it's not the chief butler remembered Joseph, but forget him. So normally it should be, everything should be good, but it's like always these little retarding moments. It's not the time yet, you have to wait. And normally justice, normally everything is good and everything went well, but it's not that easy. So I think, well, yeah, another answer.
Thank you very much.
If you take the verse 22, so does not say the baker was hung as they dreamed, as God revealed in the dream, but he said as Joseph interpreted. And I think it's very significant. Again, I don't think it was in the dream. I think the dream was something else. Joseph interpreted it as relating to these people. And I think in Pharaoh's dream, also we see the same thing. If you go to chapter 41, verse 54. So it says, and the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said, not according as Pharaoh had dreamed, but according as Joseph had said. So now just a question: what is the information? The interpretation of the dream. You see, if we the dream, so the dream is the source of information. The interpreter is just the radio that gets the information and broadcasts. But it says here, not as by radio. You don't say that France won the Mundial as the radio said. It's meaningless. So if Joseph is a radio, there is no reason to mention him here.
Okay, thank you. We have Edmund, Ferenc, Sebastian, and Elisa or Aviram.
I would like to follow Marcus because for me there was no answer on how Potiphar saw that the Lord was with Joseph, like the surrounding light or anything. And my question here is, how did the baker and like how did they saw that the Lord was with Joseph and he could interpret the dreams, or was there just no other person who was there to tell what they had dreamed?
What does it mean? How do you explain that the interpretation was good? Or in German, how do you know it was a good interpretation? What does it mean? Regarding your question, how do you define a good interpretation?
It depends on the point of view, because for the baker it was a good. It was not a good.
For the butler, it was a good interpretation.
Yeah.
So good does not mean godly. Good means it's good. It was a favorable interpretation.
Yes, but why did they told him their dreams? Because he was still in the light of God, and they saw he could interpret it in the right way.
Else they just needed someone to talk to.
Yeah, but this is my question. Is it just...
Very good question.
So now we have Ferenc, Sebastian, Elisa, Aviram, Rudolf, Rami, and Dagmar.
Rav Shafter, I really like your interpretation of these verses, and it may be that he didn't interpret the dreams, but he just told them what he told them by knowledge of human nature. That he looked at these persons and told them what he told them. And if you compare, like we did, chapter 39, verse 2, with chapter 40, verse 8. In chapter 39, verse 2, you have Vayehi Adonai at Yosef. And again in 40, verse 8, Elohim is mentioned. So you again have these different levels of speaking about or of God. And really, if you look at the text, God isn't interpreting anything. It is Joseph, but he's not interpreting dreams. I really like your explanation. It absolutely makes perfect sense to me, at least. It's maybe just pastoral care. I can't interpret it, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, just
Sebastian?
The same. I mentioned that using your example.
Can you read it? So please raise your voice. Speak.
Where the microphone is?
Over the table, we can spread them. I think one of the microphones is here.
Don't speak one.
So yeah, there is no wrong interpretations, but we have a wrong interpretators. For example, wrong interpretators were the father and the brothers of Joseph, because their interpretation caused hate, caused this dramatic story, and the broke of relationship in the family. So Joseph is a good interpreter because he has the Elohim. He is with him. God is with him. So he has a. Using your example, he is a good radio who can do it, who can interpret the dreams in a proper way.
Elisa, Abiram, do you?
No, we just wanted to say about hearing people. That's all.
Pardon? Pardon me?
We just wanted to say that some people we couldn't hear as well. That's all.
Ah, I see. And now we have Rudi.
If we think it in the opposite way, what about Joseph's brothers and Jacob? Is God with them because they give the right interpretation of Joseph's dream in the beginning? I think yes, if we follow the concept we made up. And what does that mean about our categories of good and bad? Because if God is with the brothers, can we see them as bad as they are acting to Joseph?
So what do you think?
I think it's bürgerliche Kategorie.
But no one understands.
I think it doesn't matter to us if these questions, because God is with them, so they are with God in some way. And if they are acting good or bad, it doesn't matter to us, I think.
Aha. Okay. Rami, please raise your voice if I may.
Can you hear my voice clearly? So the last verses in chapter 39 refers that the chef of the prison had found a literary tradition from like grace in his eyes. So the chef had offered Joseph to be leading the prisoners, and like similarly, but in a small prototype, like he was in charge of everything in the house of Pharaoh, and then now in the prison. In chapter 40, our chapter, in verse number 4, and the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them. So when, like, I doubt that the chef may serve the newcomer prisoners, the VIPs. However, he's the chef. Like, he can delegate someone else to, like, there are new prisoners, like maybe give them a little bit good service. But for himself to do that, so maybe for the, I don't know, seems that Joseph was really good, like he's the chef and he's serving the people, and he finds them really sad. Why you seems to be sad? Like, share me. Oh, I have a dream. Share me a dream. Dreams for God. Go for it. If someone really would like to find all people around him are good, are fine. So, although he's chef, he is not required to do that.
So he's a pastor.
He has pastor care sense.
Yes. It's his youth.
As a chef, that's a good spirit, but I think it's not like, how can I say, it's not obliged.
Okay, now we have Dagmar, Alexander, Abraham, Erdmut, and Elisa.
I'm thinking about talking about dreams and not talking about dreams, because the whole story starts because Joseph is telling his brothers that he was dreaming. If he would have had only his dreams and kept them for himself, nothing would happen in the story, because it starts after he tells the dreams. My question is, if the two men in prison would not have told Jacob about their dreams, if then the one would still be hanged and the other would be released. So there seems to be, it's not only about dreaming, it's the way, are you talking about it, how are you talking? And now we have a shift in Joseph. At the beginning he was the one talking about it, and now it's the one hearing it, and both dreams become true.
So you compare dreams to self-fulfilling prophecies in a way.
If
Not
they will interpret,
self-fulfilling, not self-fulfilling prophecy, that's not the point, but if they're interpreted.
Ah, I see.
So what makes it come true, the dream or the interpretation? What makes it very good?
Okay, I see. Alexander, now.
No, I just may not really have understood what you said, especially you, Rav Shabda, and what you liked so much, Ferenc, and many others as well. If Joseph was in a pastoral care course at University of Leipzig, I would say you don't have any idea of pastoral care. What Joseph does here is terrible. Okay, they are allowed to tell their dreams, but then in verse 12 he says, okay, and now I have the interpretation. That's it, and that's not pastoral care. Pastoral care is you may ask a question again. People tell about their lives. People really get into something. You never give a piton. You never give a solution. Never. That's not pastoral care, at least not good pastoral care. So here, I don't like your interpretation. He is really of the opinion that he can interpret. And he does it in a very... Never, because people have to find it. People always have to find it. So as a good pastoral care worker, you always try to help people to find what's in their lives, to find something which is in them. So you could have asked the question, what do you see in this dream? That would have been a good pastoral care question. What do you see in this dream? And then they could have given a kind of an interpretation, and Joseph would have said, okay, does it relate to your life in any sense? And they would have continued to talk, tell them a little bit about their lives. So if you see this, I just wanted to raise my voice here, because if this is an example for pastoral care, you have no idea what pastoral care could be. So I don't accept this. I don't accept this, but I really accept the idea that it's not about the dreams, but about the interpretation, which is important. This is what I like. I just wanted to say that this is not pastoral care. So, yeah, okay.
Okay. I follow from Prof's perspective also. I think if you look at the construction of 8, and it says, and Joseph said unto them, do not interpretations belong to God? And we know already that God is with Joseph. So therefore, the capacity to interpret is there. And then when we go to the text again, if Joseph, God being with him, cannot interpret dreams, then we will affirm he being a charlatan, he being somebody who is a big con man, because he will use human situations that he knows of already to just give an interpretation of the human situation. So I assume he knows this guy will be hanged, this guy, and he just tells them what he knows already. And then why will he attribute to himself this dimension of God is with me? God, and I think auslegen gehört Gott zu, doch erzähl mir. Also, and in both the Luthers and in the English, I don't know about the Hebrew much, but I think the emphasis there is that Joseph is saying God interprets dreams, and God is with me, and I can interpret the dream. So I don't go by the dimension of the pastoral care and counseling here in the text. I think he interpreted the dreams, and we can go with Dagmar's view also.
So verse 7 is good pastoral care.
Verse 7 is great. Here he is still great as a pastoral care worker, but then he loses everything. So this opens up for them, but then as soon as you say verse 12, that's terrible.
Very interesting.
I want to come back to the point where we asked about the tragedy of Joseph, because at the end of chapter 39, it says that the Lord gave all the prisoners in Joseph's hands. And in chapter 40, it says that Joseph serves some of the prisoners. So I would question if the interpretation of a dream makes the dream or let it come true, if it's like a this tragedy of Joseph to that he has all in his hands, and then he's like guiding the storyline.
Good. Elisa?
I also wanted to add something to the pastoral care or not pastoral care issue. I also don't think that this is about pastoral care, because especially if you are thinking about the baker, I mean, sorry, but what is pastoral care in telling someone you are going to die in the next 3 days without trying to offer any? Yeah, but he's not offering any kind of comfort. He's and also the second thing is, why should the dreams become true if this all is about pastoral care? What would be the logic in the story that God will follow every pastor in what he tells people? So I mean, there must the dreams actually become true. So there must be a plan before that.
Sebastian?
No.
Rebecca?
I think there's another point in this text where we can choose if Joseph is naive or not, because or brave maybe in this situation, because he tells he tells the baker that he will die, and on the one hand it's like a little bit naive because you don't know what a reaction would be from the bakery, from the baker man, or on the other hand it's brave because he tells him knowing that the baker could become angry and hit him or something. So maybe it's naive, or yes, it's like the same motive in other situations.
Okay, I accept the superior opinion of Alexander about pastoral care, but Elisa's question was very good. So I think the target was not the baker, the target was what they call the butler here. And the baker was background in order to prove the validity of Joseph's solution. And so the baker is waste. So he was hung and we disregard it. But the butler has a duty. And so maybe it's not in a pastoral way, but he has an appointment. There is something required for him. The dream is not the issue. What is the issue? That he will go on and say what Joseph can do, or he will release Joseph from jail. So in that sense, it's a mission. Not pastoral care, it's a mission.
Yeah, Alexander?
When we started discussing this chapter about the dreams, we were closer to the dreams. You in your interpretation, Rav Shabtai, you brought us a little away from the dream aspect, more to this interpretation aspect. But what does Joseph learn here in chapter 40? He had a dream in 37, and in the meantime, he went through some really terrible things happening in his life, and so he may have lost the confidence that a dream really can be some kind of revelation from God. Maybe, but what is proven in chapter 40 is now that Joseph learns, wow, really, dreams are revelations, because they show something which we did not know otherwise. So I think it's a whole chapter about the relevance of
Who
dreams.
is the revelation? The dreamer or the interpreter?
Yeah, that's the good question, of course. That's the good question, but it's connected.
Who is the radio and who is the source of information?
But without the dream, there would be no interpretation.
Course,
so you need both.
Who
And
gets the revelation?
If we accept
The
that
media is the message.
the media is the message, yeah. If
So
we
what's-
accept, but if we accept that it's from God somehow, and that dreams are a way of God's revelation, then Joseph gets somehow reassured in this chapter, wow, maybe my dreams are still coming true.
But why do you think he was not sure that the dreams could be true before that? I mean, there's this young man. He's been thrown away by his brothers, but he survives, comes to Egypt, in their household. I mean, from our perspective, it seems like bad. But in the story of the time, it's also something like surviving like a miracle, because we need to survive from one country to the other and survive everything. So I'm not sure Joseph is really thinking that.
But his dream was the dream of the unity of his family, united somehow under him or with him. And this dream, he was as far away as you can imagine. He was alone in another country, in Egypt. He could never expect his family to come there, and he could never expect to go back to his family. So in this sense, his dream was really, really far away. And now he learned, oh, maybe still there is something in the dreams. So let's see the dream as a promise, as Abraham said some hours ago. Yeah?
Anne.
Yes, my aspect is a little bit like what Professor Dick just said, because in chapter 37, it's Joseph is the dreamer and he has dreams, but it's not said that he can interpret them. So there must be like a development between 37 and 40, and maybe when we think of there might have been years between, in the narration there might have been years between these events. Maybe he dreamed more dreams and more, and by dreaming and what happened after that, maybe he learned or experienced that there might be a revelation. So I just think that it's an interesting development I wanted to mention.
How about our friends at the at the computers? Do you want to? You are so silent.
Yeah, I think it's this question whether the message is within the dream or is within the interpreter is really interesting, because it's the key question of studying the Bible all the time, right? Is there inspiration in the text, or is there inspiration in the interpreter? And I thought this point was really interesting.
Thank you. Rahel, do you want to add something?
Yeah, it's wonderful to listen to you. That's great. And the pastoral care stuff struck me, because it's I think it's true when you have when you think that you can interpret the text and you come and tell the people, and even if it's through God, but when you are so forward to people and tell them, okay, you're going to do, and this is the answer and the one truth, that's not really pastoral care stuff. And so, yeah, this aspect was interesting. And is the truth in the text or in the person who sits in front? It's good too. A lot to think about.
Elisa, Aviram, what's your input?
Yeah, I want to say it's kind of a question more than an interpretation, but I want to go back to verse 5. I don't really understand it. It says the two of them dreamt a dream. Each one had his dream on the same night, each one according to the interpretation of his dream. In Hebrew, והחלמו חלום שניהם, איש חלומו בלילה אחד, איש כפתרון חלומו, המשקה והאופה וכו'. I don't really understand what the word, this verse doesn't make any sense, so I don't really understand what the word פתרון or interpretation means. I don't think that פתרון means interpretation in the simple sense. I think it's something else. I don't quite know to tell what it is, but if we think about it as a simple interpretation, I don't think that this verse makes sense. So maybe we should try to understand what does it mean, what pitaron means.
That's a good question. Okay,
I suggest that comparing the dream to text is really an ingenious idea. If you think of the dream as a text, but it's a picture, a text, because when they tell the dream, it becomes text. How do we interpret text? So text, of course, we saw now can have many interpretations. So a dream can also have many interpretations. And the interpretation, maybe the particular interpretation has power. It's like court. Think of court. They have the law. The law is the text. And the then he brings a verdict, and the verdict obliges. It has validity. So maybe you could think about the dream as a text that the interpreter has the power to interpret it or to explain it, but it has more depth and more solutions and many, many more possibilities. But it's the pitaron means simply translation. You translate from the language of the dream to the practical, to 3 days, they will hang you to concrete. You take the language of the dream and you make it a concrete event.
Aviram.
Yes, I just wanted to ask Rav Shabtai, so what does it mean that each of them dreamt according to the interpretation?
It means, exactly, it means that the dream was some texts, in order to translate them, to interpret them, you need tremendous imagination. You change the text, like we see in verses here. You have to work very hard. You have to put missing information, and you have a hard job to take. Or a judge, he has the language of the law, and then he has to put in a lot of interpretation to come to a conclusion. And sometimes it's simple. It's very simple. The interpretation is straightforward, comes out straightforward from the text. So maybe what it says simply, it was a dream that was very close to the concrete interpretation of Joseph.
So did they already know?
No, they did not know anything. But it says they had the dreams. That the dream could be the essence. The dream was of a type that the interpretation was straightforward.
So Joseph did nothing special in this case.
You need to be very special to interpret. But the thing is, once you have the interpretation, you see that every detail in the dream can be made concrete. There were no extra things or no missing things that he had to fulfill. It was every detail in the dream can find itself in the solution, in the interpretation.
The German translation, by the way, is much more indifferent. It says not according to the interpretation, but it says every dream and its meaning. So it just
and how you compare it to the Hebrew?
Am I a translator?
No, but try.
Difficult. I just think that Luther did not understand what he read, because the interpretation came later on, and that the dreams became true also was revealed later on. And so this is some kind of anachronistic preamble, yes. And he translated it as if it was a very, very soft preamble, which implied what may happen, but nothing more. Sebastian.
I would like to put. We've been talking about on the break about if Joseph was concerned or was even he had the faith in or he believed that his dream is true or not. I think it's a very interesting thing about it, because as I mentioned before, I believed that maybe we can understand his dream as a promise, which will be fulfilled in the future, but the interpreters, father and brothers, and Joseph, had different ideas how it would be. So without saying about the dream, it will be not this whole story, because they interpreted in a wrong, I mean not wrong way, but they were trying to, firstly, as I mentioned, they became against Joseph, but actually whole story was like a mountain, and Joseph on the beginning of the path knows what is on the top of the mountain, the bowing down of fathers and brothers. So it is very interesting aspect. If the promise is fulfilled because they believed in it, or it is because the brothers wanted to deny the promise. So we have like you know, Anna, the drama, Greek drama in it, because as well, like Antiphona by Sophocles, was a kind of promise, was a kind of fate, and the people were against this fate, and that makes the fate fulfilled. So it's a very interesting aspect of fate, of destiny.
Yes, we have two more voices that I postponed. So maybe Sonia, you it would be yours. Maybe
But-
you want to return
Yes.
to the former discussion, or you want to add to this discussion your.
No, my point goes back to former discussion. If anyone wants to add to the current, they can go before me. Okay, I wanted to go back to the baker, and maybe play a little advocate for him, because I don't think he's just background story for the butler. Because if he was just there as a background for the butler, we wouldn't need him, and the butler comes first. So why not have the baker first as a background? So I think that there are two stories, the butler and the baker. It really shows that it's about the dreams and the reassurance in the dreams for Joseph, and maybe also for the reader. But because for now it is still open whether the dreams from the beginning in chapter 37 will come true. So at this point, the reader and also Joseph need reassurance, and we have two ways. One that ends well, the butler, and one that ends not well, the baker. So this shows it's not just coincidence that Joseph told the butler the truth, or it's two. So this is really reassuring that he can interpret both dreams in the right way.
Okay.
So I don't think he's just background.
Thank you very much, Abraham.
Okay, and in line with Sonia, also I want to say that whether Joseph gave a description, whatever he did, he was confident of whatever he did for the two people. And in verse 14, we see, "But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house." So he was confident that what I'm doing for you is the right thing, is that sure thing. And he put his finger on it and look, it will be well with you. So look to me, give me some benefits from what I'm doing for you, because it will surely come true. So I think it put a stamp on the authenticity of what Joseph did.
Thank you very much. Well, let's have a look at our friends at the computer. So maybe it's again you have the opportunity to add your.
Or may I ask one more question? But of course.
Do you want to hear Alexander's question first, or? Okay, they're nodding. So.
What I learned in our discussions again this week, and what we did so often, and especially yesterday evening, the others outside don't know it. We started with one of the craziest verses of one biblical chapter, and could find a lot in it. So there is no useless, no senseless word in the Bible. Actually, so far we discussed this chapter as if there were many useless words in it. So why do we know all this information? Why do we know all the details of these dreams? Why do we know all this? I would really like to understand a little more, and I'm not really satisfied. Thank you. I'm not really satisfied with what we did so far with this chapter, because I have the feeling there are many senseless words. I could have gotten the point much earlier and much clearer. So is it just for the nice little story about these two, or is there really something in it? The baker, the butler, these two, why these two? What's happening with the streams? Why 3 days? Is it just narrative stuff we can hear and forget? Or does someone discover anything more in any of these verses? So, yeah.
Well, Rolly raised his hand immediately.
Something very similar bothers me, but my reaction to it is to step back from trying to interpret it or find how the details fit, and go to a place that actually fits more with what Rav Shatai described before. But maybe he's not going to like the way I did it, because when I read this portion of the story and around it the rest of the story, the way it makes the most sense to me is to read it as a dream. Well, this occurrence itself,
Dream within a dream.
it is a dream. Within a dream, all these things happen, or at least it's got the same flavor of a dream. It's the occurrences, some things come into focus that on the day-to-day don't. Some symbolic things become prominent. Some things have more color. Some things suddenly don't. And so the search for a meaning within a dream while you're dreaming. I don't know if anyone else has ever done this, but trying to understand what you're seeing while you're dreaming. If anyone's ever exercised vivid dreaming, not for everyone, then trying to understand what you're dreaming, when you're dreaming it, if you're trying to use logic in the linear sense, it just gives you a migraine. It's more about accepting the story, and once you accept it, then that is the pitaron.
So, maybe someone could be.
Yeah. Rahel, Annika, Aviram, Elisa, someone of you.
I think it's.
May I?
Rahel.
Okay. What just occurred to me was verse 16. Someone from the beginning, that the baker said, "Okay, you did well with your interpretation, and I want you to interpret my dream too." So I think Joseph was in the place of proving himself. So he maybe knew that God spoke to him or through him to interpret the dreams, but for the people it wasn't enough. So he had to ensure or prove himself that he was able to do it and able to do it good. So the baker wanted some good interpretation for himself, but he didn't gain one. But it was first he told him his dream after he knew that he could do it. So it's kind of proving.
Okay, if I may, I think it's a Lech Lecha story. In the sense that the difference between the butler, what is the difference between the butler and the baker? That the butler's dream is a process, for a vineyard to grow branches and to have trees and to have fruit, it's a process. The baker has already baskets of bread, he's in the comfort zone. He's there with baskets of bread, everything is fine. So once you reach that, you're there. You reach the status quo, you have the bread on your head, you are there to the center, even if it has even a festering smell to it, like Oli indicated. You have the bird eating the bread out. It's festering already. Once it's status, you reach the end, so that's it. It's now it gets to fester, and the butler he has process. So the butler jumped in and he feels uncomfortable, because I think if you think about the dreams, who feels more comfortable in the dream? The baker. He has the bread ready. It's all there. All he has to do is to chase the bird away. And the butler is very worried. He has an order to bring wine to the king. And what happens? First of all, he has to plant the tree. Then the tree has to grow and it gives fruit and give grapes. He feels very uncomfortable. So the first person to tell the dream and to seek pastoral help or solution is the butler. And he gets a solution. And the baker does not ask for a solution till afterwards. Meaning he is a person that comes to a ready state. And maybe this is the message of the story.
Yes. Maybe we could spend some time on looking. Maybe we can look at the descriptions of the dreams a little more in detail, because I think they're very, very nice, organized, and the language is really nice, and the motives. So maybe, I'm not quite sure, but maybe you, Akshat, could say something about this. But for example, the first dream, it reminds me a little bit of Isaiah 5. I don't know how to say it in English. Yeah, but it's 5, isn't it? The Weinberg?
The vine, yes. Mashal Kerem.
Of course, it is Kerem and not Geffen, and I'm not sure if it's Anavim but it's about grapes and about the wine as well. But I'm not quite sure if it's the same motive of a
It's very interesting. There the Kerem is a nightmare.
Yes.
It's supposed to give grapes, but it gives terrible things.
And here it's the opposite. But is there a motive, or what would you say?
It's very interesting. Definitely, it's the fear of everyone that grows grapes, that if he needs the grapes, that when he needs them, they won't come out. Something bad will come out. So it's very good.
We have Sonia, we have Alexander, and Dagmar.
This is just a small detail, because you asked about more details from the dream. I wondered why is it 3 branches, 3 days, and with the baker the same, the number 3. And we had this number before, I remembered, and the funny thing is it occurs later again, because when the brothers come, Joseph takes the brothers and throws them in jail for 3 days, and on the 3rd day he releases them. So it's the same amount of time that passes before the butler and the baker come out of prison.
Do you have an interpretation for the 3?
No, not yet, but I wanted to bring it up because I think it's an interesting detail.
It's very interesting.
It's a comment.
You have a straight interpretation?
A small comment. No, it's not a small comment. All the dreams has numbers. The first 2 dreams, they always came in twins, the dreams, and every dream has a number. The first one has 11 or 12, and the second dream has the 3, and the dreams of Pharaoh has the 7. I don't know what it means, but there's something with the numbers.
That's quite interesting. Dreams and numbers. Alexander, it's yours.
Yeah, I'm really enthusiastic now, because what you said, Rav Shabtai, is of course great. It links us back to Wittenberg last year. It links us back to Lech Lecha, and it's at the same time a bit ambiguous, as proving a concept you have in your head again in this story is always a bit dangerous, because you find in the story what you already know. So it's a Lech Lecha story, but I like it very, very much. And now rereading this story, actually producing wine is much more than pressing some grapes into the cup of someone. It's much more. So actually what his dream shows in this moment is I really can't fulfill what I'm doing. I can't do it. But his dream is the positive one. I try my very best. I'm in the process of doing it. I do my part in the history. The baker thinks I have it in my hand. And this is what I somehow discovered through the days we were reading the Joseph story now, that it's always dangerous when people think, I have history in my hands. I can take it in my hands. I will complete it. I will finish it. And the other way is going into the Lech Lecha movement, going into the movement which is open.
And who makes the error? Joseph. He asks the butler to remind it to Pharaoh. So he tries to take it into his hand, and what happens?
Yeah.
He forgets it.
He forgets it.
Exactly.
So again,
it's a process.
It's again
It
the
has
process.
to take its time.
Right. Oh, that's great. I like that.
Dagmar.
First of all, about the three, maybe it needs to be three because the story with the brothers is 3 times. So it's 3 times. First, they come alone, then they bring Benjamin, and then the father comes. So could be that this is three. And I'm just thinking, from it, I really like your interpretation, but I read the dream of Butler much more positive than you read it, both. And I was just thinking, so normally the dream is not as simple as we've been taught here. So normally if you're dreaming, it's much more complex. A lot of, as you said, it's different colors and different feelings. And we do not know exactly what the butler and the baker did. We just feel they did something bad. But that would be the one spilling the wine and the other one poisoning the bread. So doing something bad on Pharaoh's court would be very different things. And I'm just thinking that on the level of unconsciousness or whatever, they knew what to expect. So if in fact the butler only was spilling the wine, he would know Pharaoh is not going to kill him. And if in fact the baker was poisoning the bread, he would expect that he would be killed for that. So I'm just thinking the way like they choose to present their dreams was because they could already see what was coming. And so Joseph was in Germany you could make the distinction of saying he was not a Wahrsager, but he was a Wahrsager. So he was telling the truth, like he could hear it from them, how they describe their dreams. And then it would be totally other direction.
Sebastian?
I'm thinking which of these I would be. I mean, if I would be in prison with Joseph and I had a dream, I would ask him or not about the future. It's some kind of question if I would like to know if I die in 3 days, or I would like to be unsure. Yeah, and I think Baker noticed that Joseph interpreted the dream, and he thought that his interpretation makes reality. In that case, that if he had a nice dream, because maybe Baker was thinking, oh, I have a maybe nice dream, and that makes that if Joseph interpreted it in a good way, like it does in the first case, I will be as well maybe reveal out of the prison, yeah, released from the prison. So this situation shows that not interpretation makes a reality, but it is some kind of a kind of plan. It's planned before, determined. The fate is determined in that understanding. So I just want asking myself if I would ask the Joseph about the dream, if I would be with him in the prison.
That's interesting. Aviram, Melissa, one of you raised the hand.
1 second, I had to unmute myself. Hi. So I was thinking about what Aviram said, and I think if I were in a prison cell because the great leader / godlike figure of the land put me there, it would be a very dire and very difficult situation, and you would want any piece of information you could get to know what's going to happen to you. I think the waiting and the not knowing and the being put in prison and not knowing what's going to happen to you or your future is something that is torturous and something that, you know, that anybody, I guess, would want to know what's going to happen. Even if after the fact they wouldn't want to know they're going to die, they think that they'd want to know beforehand and they would ask. But one thing that I think is interesting about that is the wine bearer and the baker. The wine bearer asks Joseph for an interpretation. It's the first one. He has no idea what he's going to say. He doesn't know if it's going to be good. He doesn't know if it's going to be bad. And it kind of shows, you know, he just wants to know. He wants to know what's going to happen. Only after that did the baker ask. It's possible the baker thinks, listen, he gave good interpretation, or what he says comes about and may happen, so I'm going to ask too. And then gets a very, very different response. And like we were saying about the dreams, it's really interesting that in the dream of the winemaker, of the wine bearer, he's dreaming about making, about the process, about being involved, about doing something, like not taking things for granted or not being necessarily pompous or something. And the baker just has all the bread ready. It's just there. It's just kind of popped up in his dream. He's not dreaming about taking the wheat and grinding it and making it into the bread. So one thing that made me think of this was in the Psukim, in the actual verses where Joseph starts to interpret their dreams. It's a really funny kind of play on words. So if you look in the Hebrew, and I think it's play on words, and verse 13, and Yud Gimel, so it says, "Ba'od shloshet yamim yisa paro et roshecha ve'hashivcha al kanecha." Okay, so like in another 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and will restore you to your post. And then if you look at the baker, he says in verse where is it? In verse 19, "V'od shloshet yamim yisa paro et roshecha me'alecha." And so it's the exact same words. And in the case of the wine bearer, he says, in 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and put you back to your post.
Yes, it's good to be.
And then what?
It's good to be attached to your head when someone raises your head.
Yeah. And then for the baker, he's like, in 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head from you. So it's just, he was expecting a similar response, and Joseph started to respond exactly in the same way and then turned it around at the last moment. So just interesting in the verses.
Yes, good.
So, Alexander was not satisfied several minutes ago because we didn't pay much attention to the details of this chapter, and step by step we filled more and more details, and like a mosaic, and the picture becomes.
You did the best word for my satisfaction.
It becomes more and more complex, and but here we are. I think it's now the end of our session. The mosaic is not yet ready made, but I think there is enough pieces that we can put in by ourselves, and the talks will go on. And, okay, and of course, Rav Shabtai has got the final word.
No, not the final. Just maybe people would like to comment. The question that Alexander raised is much more than the missing details. Is why these dreams now? Just to show that how Yosef was released. So as we said, because Yosef said that he was released somehow, and he came out after 2 years. He came out of jail, and that's it. What is the importance? If we say that the importance is that you cannot take history in your hand, and it's a process, and it's lech lecha, it's not comfortable, it's a thing, then I think it's a wonderful marker. In jail, you cannot move. You are there. Now, before being released from jail, you have to understand the point that it's a process. You are lech lecha, you are not in your comfort zone. You have to. And now the same thing happens with what happens to Pharaoh afterwards. it seems that Joseph is put on the throne without any effort. In 1 minute he is a slave, the next minute he has time to bathe and shave, and he is put on the throne. But then you have to do something. It's a process. What do you have to do? There is the 7 years of plenty and 10 years of hunger. Okay, very nice. But he has to do something difficult. What is the difficult thing that he has to do? Read the other chapter. Then he gets the message that he cannot just rest as a king of Egypt. There is something he must do, and will be done afterwards and afterwards and afterwards, and you never reach the end. And maybe this is the meaning of the dream, that if you are moving onwards, you are alive. Once you stop, you are dead.
That's an important remark, because we focused on the details of this chapter
and the context.
Exactly. You opened the perspective for the context and asked for the function of this chapter within the whole story. Edmund wants to make a comment.
But I would also say that dreams always have the importance that they change the situation totally. Because when Joseph had his first dream, then the brothers got really, really angry and started to hate him and then to sell him. And then the next time when he, for the dreams in the prison, afterwards, probably there was some time between, but then the butler remembered him. And then after he interpreted the dream of the Pharaoh, then Joseph got in a really, really important position. So the dreams have always the importance that they change Joseph's situation totally, I guess.
And if you say that it changed by a dream, is what they call a quantum leap. It's not straight, but it's a jump. If it's a dream, it's a jump. Maybe this is the character of Joseph. That he doesn't go like this, he jumps.
And I would like to get back to the point you raised, that it's very interesting that those dreams always come in two, which underlines maybe that this is no coincidence. It's because you have always the two dreams that change Joseph's destiny. So we raised the question, who really is the subject of this whole story, and maybe that this is a metaphor for there's something greater at work, is a hint towards that.
Maybe it's similar to a trial where you need two witnesses for conviction, and so this time it's quite similar. You have always two dreams, and they become true in a way. We have a risen hand.
Hi. One interesting thing I want to note about the dreams coming in pairs is, I think that's an interesting note. They just said that you need two witnesses, and it reminds me of Joseph's dreams, that he has the sheaves of wheat bound to him, and then the stars. And it's like heaven and earth. And it's mentioned in the Torah that God will bring heaven and earth to witness, here for the covenant. And so that is a known concept, a known idea in the Torah, in the Bible. But also what's interesting, in addition to that, is that when Joseph dreams, he has two dreams, sheaves of wheat and the stars and the moon and sun. And those are two seemingly positive dreams, or two dreams that are saying seemingly the same thing, that he's going to be a leader and people will bow down to him, etc., and his brothers as well. And then with the baker and the wine bearer, one dream is a seemingly positive dream, he's going to be released and restored. One dream is seemingly negative, the birds are taking out the bread and he's going to be killed. And the same thing with Pharaoh, that he has one dream of the years of plenty, of like the fat cows and everything, and then one dream of the years of famine. So it's just interesting that for Joseph, both of them seem to be positive, like God is with you, and with the other two examples is a positive and a negative.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, it was great to have you with us, at least for this one session. we hope to see you soon back in the next or one of the next Zoom sessions. And
maybe someone wants to join.
Next time in the US.
The same time if you want. מה יש בערב, רוני? לא, ב-6.
אולי אני חושב שרוצים שהם יסתכלו בדיון סיפור.
So, I think we need to discuss a little bit more on that. But I would say we close this session for now. Say goodbye. Thank you for joining us. And
thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice
Bye,
to see
have
you.
a good time.
Enjoy Israel.
Bye.
Bye bye.